Hello and welcome. Thank you for listening. Please find a seat, get comfortable, or perhaps get ready to be profoundly uncomfortable. Because the story we're going to unravel tonight isn't just a story of a simple betrayal. It's not a mere falling out between friends, a clash of egos in the boardroom, or a messy romantic entanglement, though, as we'll see, it has elements of all those things. No. What we have here, according to one woman, is a blueprint for annihilation. A calculated, cold-blooded, and meticulously executed conspiracy to dismantle a person, piece by piece, until nothing but the memory of the wreckage remained. That woman is Anna Johnston. And the architects of this alleged ruin? Two people she once considered her closest allies, her fiercest champions, her partners in crime, Amber and Trent. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, people say these things all the time. There are two sides to every story. Hell, there are three sides, yours, mine, and the cold, hard truth. And you are absolutely right. We must always maintain that skepticism. But my job tonight is not to be the judge or the jury. My job is to be the narrator. To give you Anna's account in all its raw, furious, and heartbreaking detail. To lay out her accusations, her timeline, her so-called evidence, and let you sit with the sheer, staggering scale of it all. So, let's rewind. Let's go back to the beginning, to a time when the sun was shining and the world was full of promise for Anna Johnston. Picture it, 5 years ago. Anna was a blazing talent, a force of nature in the world of boutique branding. She had the eye, she had the vision, she had that elusive, almost magical ability to see the soul of a person or a company and translate it into a visual identity. What she lacked, by her own admission, was the sharp business acumen to scale it and the relentless, cutthroat ambition to shout her name from the rooftops. She was an artist first and foremost. Enter Amber. Amber was fire and strategy. She was the one who could look at a beautiful, intricate painting and immediately calculate its square footage value, its market potential, its leverage. She was a negotiator, a charmer, a networker. She could talk her way into any room, and usually, she could talk her way into owning it. Anna and Amber met at a conference. It was instant synergy. They filled each other's gaps. Anna created the masterpiece. Amber built the gallery and sold the tickets. And then, through Amber, came Trent. If Amber was the fire, Trent was the foundation. Steady, reliable, impossibly connected Trent. He was in finance, but with the soul of a creative. He understood the language of profit margins and the poetry of a perfect logo. He was the quiet force in the corner, the one who made things happen with a phone call, who could secure funding, who could smooth over bureaucratic nightmares. He was the anchor. The three of them together? It was alchemy. It was magic. They founded Veritas Collective. A pretentious name, maybe, but it captured their mission. Authentic, soul-driven branding for visionary clients. Anna was the chief creative officer. Amber was the CEO. Trent was the silent partner, the chairman of the board, the financial backbone. For 3 years, it was a fairy tale. The company exploded. They went from a shared co-working space to a stunning downtown loft with exposed brick and panoramic views. They were featured in magazines. They were the it firm. And their friendship was the stuff of legend. Late nights fueled by takeout and big ideas. Weekend retreats to ideate. They were a tribe. A family. Anna trusted them with her life, with her creative soul, which, for an artist, is the same thing. She says she never saw it coming. But in retrospect, she claims the signs were all there. The first crack, she believes, appeared during the Ethelred Pharmaceuticals account. It was their biggest client yet. A multi-million-dollar, 2-year contract to completely rebrand their public image. Anna, as always, dove deep. She spent months researching, immersing herself in their world. And what she found horrified her. She discovered practices she considered ethically dubious, environmental records that were creatively reported, and a corporate culture that was the absolute antithesis of everything Veritas Collective was supposed to stand for. She presented her findings to Amber and Trent. She said, "We can't do this. This is a lie. This isn't branding. This is a facelift on a corpse. It goes against our entire veritas, our truth. And this, according to Anna, is where the schism began. Amber argued for pragmatism. This is business, Anna. This is how we pay for the pro bono work we do for the little guys. This is our runway to change the world. We can't change it if we're bankrupt. Trent was quieter, more diplomatic, but his position was clear. He'd already factored the Ethelred revenue into his financial projections for the next 3 years. He talked about fiduciary responsibilities, about investor expectations. It was their first major, irreconcilable disagreement. The art versus the account. Anna stood her ground. She said it was a line she would not cross. The tension in the office was palpable. The late-night takeout sessions stopped. The weekend retreats were replaced with tense, formal board meetings. Anna says she felt isolated, ganged up on. But she held fast, believing her principles would ultimately win out. She was, after all, the soul of the company. What was Veritas without its truth? What happened next, she claims, was phase 1 of the conspiracy, the undermining. It started subtly. In client presentations, Amber would begin to subtly downplay Anna's contributions. While Anna has created some beautiful visuals, she'd say, the real strategic heavy lifting, the market analysis, came from our broader team. The broader team was, of course, Amber. Anna would dismiss it as Amber's ego, her need for the spotlight. Then, the narratives began to shift in private. Trent would pull Anna aside, his face a mask of brotherly concern. Anna, the team is saying you're becoming difficult. That you're not a team player on the Ethelred project. You know I'm on your side, but we need to manage perceptions. He was planting seeds of doubt, making her feel paranoid, making her question her own standing within the company she helped build. Meanwhile, Amber was working on the clients. She'd have long, confidential lunches with their most important accounts. Anna later learned, through a junior designer who overheard a snippet of one such conversation, that Amber was framing Anna's ethical stance as creative volatility. She was positioning Anna as the brilliant but unstable artist, the loose cannon who might jeopardize a project on a moral whim. She was building a case, brick by brick, that Anna was a liability. The atmosphere at Veritas became toxic for Anna. Her ideas, once celebrated, were now met with skepticism in meetings. Her authority over her own creative team was being quietly eroded by Amber, who started going directly to the designers, giving them contradictory instructions, creating chaos. Anna felt she was losing her grip, her voice. She was being systematically silenced and sidelined in her own company. She confronted them. She said, "What is going on? This feels intentional." And this, she says, is when phase 2 began, the gaslighting. They were brilliant at it. They looked her in the eye, with what appeared to be genuine hurt and confusion. Amber said, "Anna, you're being paranoid. We're under a lot of stress. This Ethelred thing has us all on edge. We love you. You're the heart of this company. We just need you to be a bit more flexible." Trent played the role of the weary, reasonable peacemaker. "Anna, come on. We've built this together. Do you really think we'd turn on you? We're just trying to run a business. You're seeing demons where there are none." And for a while, it worked. She started questioning herself. Was she being difficult? Was she letting her perfectionism and her ethics get in the way of their collective success? The cognitive dissonance was torture. The evidence of her own experience was screaming one thing, and the two people she trusted most in the world were calmly, convincingly, telling her another. This is the true genius and the true cruelty of a conspiracy like this. It doesn't just attack you from the outside, it recruits your own mind to attack you from within. You become complicit in your own destruction. Then came the catalyst. The Ethelred deal fell through. The client, tired of the internal drama and spooked by Amber's carefully placed insinuations about Anna's reliability, walked away. The company lost the biggest contract in its history. The emergency board meeting was called. Anna walked in, prepared to take responsibility for her part, but also to finally clear the air. She never got the chance. Amber and Trent were ready. They presented it not as a business loss, but as a catastrophic failure of leadership. Anna's leadership. They had spreadsheets, projections showing the devastating financial impact. They had, and this was the masterstroke, anonymous testimonials from other team members, citing a toxic work environment and unpredictable leadership from the creative department. They had created a paper trail, a narrative of failure, and they laid it all at Anna's feet. They presented her with an ultimatum. She could either voluntarily step down from her executive role and become a consultant, a figurehead with no power, no voice, and a severely diluted share, or the board, which they controlled, would have no choice but to vote for her removal for cause, which would mean she would forfeit her shares entirely. They framed it as the compassionate option. "We're giving you a way out, Anna. A way to save face." She was in shock. It was a hostile takeover of her own life's work. She refused. She fought. She screamed. She called them traitors. And that's when they unveiled Phase 3, the character assassination. The very next day, a story was leaked to the industry press. It was anonymous, of course, but meticulously sourced. It painted Anna Johnston as a diva, a talent who had been consumed by her own ego. It said she was impossible to work with, that her erratic behavior and unreasonable ethical demands had cost the company its flagship client and millions of dollars. It suggested, in carefully couched language, that she might have deeper, personal problems, burnout, perhaps, or something else, that were affecting her professional judgment. The phone started ringing. Not with job offers, but with concerned, gossipy calls from colleagues. Her reputation, the thing she had built with a decade of sweat and brilliance, was being dismantled in a matter of hours. But it didn't stop there. This is where the conspiracy, according to Anna, truly revealed its monstrous, premeditated nature. Amber and Trent, she claims, had been preparing for this for months. They had access to everything. Her company email, her internal chat logs. She now believes they selectively edited, took out of context, and fabricated communications to build their case. She says they created a false narrative of her being abusive to junior staff, of missing crucial deadlines, of being disengaged and negligent. They presented this dossier to their lawyers and to the remaining board members to justify her removal. She was officially ousted from Veritas Collective. She was locked out of the building. Her access was revoked. She was cut off, surgically and completely, from the company she conceived of, the brand that was her identity. The legal battle was brutal and, for Anna, disastrous. Amber and Trent were prepared. Their case was airtight, built on the foundation of documents and narratives they had constructed over the better part of a year. Anna's lawyers were fighting a ghost. The evidence against her was overwhelming because it had been designed to be overwhelming. She spent her life savings on legal fees and lost. She was left with nothing. No job, no company, a shattered reputation, and a mountain of debt. The psychological toll was even worse. The betrayal was so complete, so sophisticated, that it broke her sense of reality. How could two people she loved, she trusted, she built an empire with, look her in the eye every day while secretly sharpening the knives? How could they sit across from her at dinner, laughing and reminiscing, while actively building the prison she would soon be thrown into? She fell into a deep depression. The industry she had loved now saw her as damaged goods, a cautionary tale. The Anna Johnston brand was toxic. She was unemployable. The whispers followed her everywhere. She's difficult. She lost it. She sabotaged her own company. For a year, she disappeared. She hit rock bottom. She says there were days she didn't get out of bed, the weight of the injustice and the grief so heavy it felt physical. What saved her, she says, was a slow, painful awakening. It was the realization that she hadn't just been outmaneuvered in a business dispute. She had been the victim of a long-term, malicious, and deeply personal conspiracy. It was the difference between losing a fight and being abducted. This understanding, as painful as it was, gave her a new enemy to focus on. It wasn't her own failure, it was their treachery. Piece by piece, she began to rebuild. She started talking to old colleagues carefully, cautiously. And slowly, little fragments of truth began to emerge. The junior designer who confirmed he'd been pressured by Amber to sign a misleading statement about Anna's volatility. A former client who mentioned, offhandedly, how Trent had once subtly warned them that Anna wasn't fully on board with the project's direction long before the Ethelred blow-up. An old IT contractor who vaguely recalled being asked by Trent months before the coup about data backup protocols and access logs, a question that seemed innocuous at the time but now felt sinister. She had no money for another legal battle. The courts had spoken. But the court of public opinion was still in session. And so Anna Johnston has decided to speak. To tell her story, not as a legal plea, but as a human one. Her accusation is simple and devastating. Amber and Trent, driven by greed, power, and a fundamental lack of scruples, conspired to systematically destroy her professional life and personal reputation. They weaponized her trust, used her own principles against her, and engineered a scenario where her removal was not just justified, but necessary. They didn't just fire her, they made her unfireable anywhere else. They didn't just take her company, they tried to erase her from its history. She claims they conspired to ruin her because she was the only thing standing between them and absolute control of a multi-million-dollar enterprise. She was the conscience they wanted to eliminate. Her truth was the inconvenient obstacle to their untrammeled ambition. So, where does that leave us? With one woman's word against a mountain of what appears to be documented evidence. But as any historian will tell you, history is written by the victors. The documents, the memos, the official records of Veritas Collective, they all tell the story of Amber and Trent. They tell the story of the stable, pragmatic leaders who saved the company from its volatile, brilliant founder. Anna's story is the oral history. The ghost in the machine. The whisper from the ruins. It's a story about how the closest thing to magic, trust, synergy, shared dreams can be perverted into the most potent poison. It's a story that asks a terrifying question. Do you really know the people you work with? The people you break bread with? The people you call your tribe? Anna Johnston's answer is a resounding, painful, and unequivocal no. She looked into the eyes of her best friends and saw only reflections of herself. She never saw the knives until they were already in her back. She is now a ghost, haunting the halls of her own former life. And this is her testimony. This is her attempt to scream from the shadows, to tell the world that the official story is a lie, meticulously crafted by the very people who swore to build the truth with her. The conspiracy, she says, was perfect. It was airtight. It was, in a horrifying way, a work of art. But no conspiracy can account for the one thing that remains when everything else is taken away, the human voice, refusing to be silenced. This is Anna Johnston's voice. And whether you believe it or not, it is now a part of the record. Thank you for listening.